I'm Patrick Pacheco. Coming up on Theater, All the Moving Parts, a chat with Tara Rubin, who as a casting director is crucial to the success of any show. Hello, I'm Patrick Pacheco. Welcome to Theater, All the Moving Parts, and a conversation with casting director Tara Rubin. Over the past 3 decades, Tara has collaborated with the top talents of Broadway in securing the rosters of actors we've seen in such musicals as Phantom of the Opera, Jersey Boys, Dear Evan Hansen, The Band's Visit, Ain't Too Proud, and now Six. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you.
It is so good to see you again.
Great to see you. It's great to see everybody again.
Isn't it though? What do you suppose is the most common misperception that people have about casting directors?
That's my favorite question. I think the biggest misconception is that we're uncaring, hardened, that we are kind of like press agents from a 1940s movie, you know? When the casting directors that I know are involved at Casting Society of America, our professional organization, we have worked in soup kitchens. We are constantly doing trainings and trying to be as involved in the theater community as we possibly can. We love actors. We want every actor who comes before us to be brilliant and to succeed.
Obviously, in the audition process, actors can be very nervous walking into a room. How do you create an environment in the room in which they can put their best foot forward? Well,
the main thing we do is we try to make sure that either someone from our team or the director meets the actor kind of standing up and as he or she enters the room, so that that the artist isn't walking into just a panel of people behind a desk. And I think that does a lot to just kind of welcome the person. If I'm in the hallway and I get to talk to them, I try to encourage them to just, bring especially since we've been back to doing live auditions this fall, it just, you don't know what anyone's been through. So some people learned an instrument and a language, and some people had a very, very difficult year and a half. So I've just been encouraging actors to bring your humanity in with you today, and we'll just sort through it,
You mentioned a panel of people. Obviously, they walk into a room, and behind that desk are the producer often, the director, the writer sometimes, if the writer is living, and the choreographer, music director, all these people. It is an intimidating process. But you probably work mostly with the director at the beginning. Is that correct?
The director, or sometimes an associate director. If a project is coming over from London, oftentimes we'll do some preliminary auditions with an associate. I love that because that gives us a chance to kind of have a little bit of a roll up to the audition with the actual creative team. But usually it's the director.
A production you just mentioned, a production that was coming over from England, a production that just came over from England that you have to cast is Six. You did cast. In that case, did you begin by flying over to London, to the West End to see the production? Is that where it started for you?
It didn't. I was so lucky. I got a call from fabulous person, Bob Mason at Chicago Shakespeare. And I'd admired the work that they do there for a long time. So getting a call from Bob, we had worked together before. Getting a call from him was always a great thing. And he told me that this musical called Six was coming to Chicago Shakes, and would I do some New York casting? And so I mentioned it to the young people in our office, and they started freaking out. They already had been listening to the cast recording from London, and they knew all about it, and so there was never a doubt that we'd be on board for Six.
We should say that Six obviously is about the six wives of Henry VIII. It's a pop concert genre form in which they compete who suffered the most and consequently should be the lead singer in the show. That's a little synopsis of it. The nature of the show is such that they are competing. So did you look for a competitive edginess among the actors?
That's such a good question because actually we look for the opposite. We do a lot of the auditions in groups. It's kind of unusual in the theater. Usually an audition, unless it's a dance audition, it's almost always individual. And so we do a lot of, they watch each other sing and dance. They introduce each other. We make little groups of 6, and they sit down in chairs and then come back and swap roles. And so it's actually, we look for people who have a great spirit of collaboration and a great spirit of like sharing their performances with their castmates.
It's fascinating because 6 is an ensemble, and you've also worked with other ensemble casts. That is Ain't Too Proud, another recent casting that you did. And you've worked a lot with the director, Des McAnuff.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how it is working with the director. And at this point, it almost seems that it's shorthand, because what does Des look for in the actors he wants to cast?
You're right about working with Des. I've worked with him since, I think, when I first started my company, which was in 2001. I think he was one of the first directors who hired me, and with absolutely no reason to help him out at the La Jolla Playhouse. So, like, I had very little to recommend me for that job, but he gave it to me, and that's how we ended up working on Jersey Boys. Des, of course, has his own particular taste, but I think most directors are looking for imagination, creativity, skill. Not every actor is the right person to tell the particular story you're telling. So sometimes you need pastels, sometimes you need primary colors, but you always need something truthful and emotionally available. And like those are the 2 things that I feel like you always have to find that, no matter what the story is.
You've raised a good point, and that is that a lot of times actors are crestfallen when they're not cast. And sometimes it's not that they're great, and it's just that they're not the right person for the storytelling. And I suppose it's important for you to convey that.
When agents call me after a long casting process, sometimes if we're casting an original company, it might be a month, 2 months, 3 months of sessions before we finally get to the final cast. And I was in the room and I still can't exactly explain why a particular actor was cast over another one. Some of it is just so ineffable, and some of it is just, I always go like this because it's like it's this and not not something I can really put into words. What I try to tell actors is, if you were in that group of actors who were seen at the final callback, all of you could have done it. Like you were at the tippity top of your field, And so take that with you everywhere you go, for every audition that you do. And your time will come.
You use the term emotional intelligence in terms of what it is you do. What do you mean by that?
I would say that casting really does involve a lot of emotional intelligence, of understanding things that are unsaid, picking up signals, knowing when an actor might need to go out in the hall for a minute and then come back in, knowing when a team needs to stop and get a cookie or a coffee, and just also knowing, like, no, he's not really right for this. This is not his story to tell.
And what do you suppose is the best way for an actor to prepare for an audition?
As far as text goes, I always say prepare, like, because that's the skeleton of the audition. So if the train is running late, or you're not feeling your best, or you had a distressing phone call before you walked in, that preparation is going to be what gets you right through it, even though no matter what else is happening on the periphery. And also, you may be asked by Des McAnuff or Susan Stroman, or someone, to stop doing what you're doing and do something else. And although you would think that intense preparation would maybe get you stuck in a certain place, actually, I feel it does the opposite. It gives you such a basis that when someone says, actually, we want to turn this way with this, you can do it, because you're not struggling with the text, or you're not struggling with the music. So that's the first thing I would say. And then imagination. I think actors sometimes feel like if they learn the material and they make it their own, that's enough. And actually, we're looking for what your ideas are. what are your details on this? And so that kind of preparation is up to the actor. And I'm always excited when I see someone come in with really cool ideas.
That's a fascinating point because sometimes you're at the very beginning of the process, not just you, but the director and the writer at the very beginning of the process. And what the imagination that the actor can bring in the audition room can actually shape the show, can't it?
It can, and it's the coolest thing because oftentimes we think we want, a particular thing in a character, or these qualities are the most important, and then some brilliant actor comes in and shows you other primary emotions or other motivations or intentions for that character, and you realize, oh wait, this is really where we need to be headed. So yeah, that's the part that's always exciting.
What you referred to earlier is often called an adjustment in the audition process. The actor comes in, does what he, she, they want to do, and then the actor says, well, try that. Let's say they're singing Happy Days Are Here Again. Try that in a sad way, that kind of an adjustment. Is it beneficial for the actor to do research on the director to anticipate what the director might ask him or her or they to do?
I'm not sure how much you can anticipate that, but it is very smart to, what kind of actors does this person usually work with? And what are the themes that seem to be of interest to this director? It's good to know the background for sure. And with writers, maybe read a couple of the other plays too. You can't, I do that when I'm casting something, I might say like, well, let me read a couple of other things and then it'll just be an even richer understanding of this person's work.
What about an actor who is bad at auditions, really talented and really great, and you think is really suited for this role, just auditions badly? What can you do to help that person snag a role you think they deserve?
But, sadly, auditioning is part of the job description for actors. And so, I would encourage an actor who feels that she isn't, really succeeding in auditions to work on the auditioning, because unfortunately it is the way you get a job. And so, I think maybe breaking that down a little bit and figuring out what is it that, if I think actually thinking of it as part of the job description is helpful.
And perhaps trying to get better at it, I suppose. The more you audition, hopefully, do you find that the more actors audition, just the better they get at auditions?
Absolutely.
That it's just that process. So keep auditioning.
Yes. Yes, like the sharing of yourself that's hard to do. It's hard for me. And yet we expect actors to do it with ease and to the degree we want. Like, some actors come in and they share a little too much. And then we're like, oh, that was a little too much. And then sometimes like trying to pull them forward. So there's emotional intelligence that actors need to have too, I think, in terms of that.
Interesting point. There's an old bar quote that in a hookup place, at 8, everybody's a 2. At 2, everybody's an 8. Right? And that goes for auditions in a way. So how do you keep the room fresh so that the person that comes in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's a little tired it's not to that person's disadvantage? How do you keep it fresh?
Breaks, mostly just giving people breaks and trying to make sure that the day is structured so that maybe we're not hearing all the ballads in a row, or that there's a variety, that we're seeing, men and women, not just the men first and the women second or whatever, trying to keep variety in the day. But I think mostly creative teams need breaks. They really need to look at their phones. And they need snacks.
And definitely, you don't want anybody hangry in that room. The final casting day, there's a whole process of weeks, perhaps, of going through tons of resumes. Final casting day, do or die, you've got to make these decisions. And there's everybody in a room looking at the piles of yes, maybes, and no's, or just the yes and the maybes. How do you build consensus if people are coming at, I want that person, no, I want that person, no, I want that person. How do you build consensus?
I think one of the things we do is I ask questions. So if there seems to be a lack of consensus, I'll try to ask the creatives, like, well, so what is it about this person, or what is it that this person, what did you not see here that you think you might need? And oftentimes when they all start talking, we can find some common need that the character needs that kind of drives us in one place. One thing I learned very early on is to always make it seem like it's their idea. So I'll put that resume on the table and someone will say like, well, what about him? Maybe he solves it. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. So that's now everybody knows.
Emotional intelligence.
Can't use that one anymore.
Is there a case where somebody would say, I love this actor, I want to cast this actor, and you think they're difficult? Can you raise that red flag with a creative team?
I struggle with it all the time. And I think after the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I've been thinking back at all the women who people have always said, oh, she's troublesome. Oh, watch out. And I started examining the stories, and I saw that most of those women had never done anything that a man hadn't done. But when women do it, it's difficult. It's challenging. And so I kind of made up my mind that I was never going to say that a woman was difficult again. And I think we're all kind of looking at what difficult is again in a new way, and actors are advocating for their rights in all areas, including in the creative space. And I don't know what the answer is, but I know that it's kind of exciting to see them doing that. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out what difficult is. And I feel incredibly responsible that I might keep a person from employment by something that I say. So I really measure what I say, even with people that I've known for years. I've seen people say like, oh, I hear she was terrible in the tour. And it was like, he wasn't even on that tour. Like, it's very irresponsible. Yeah. So I'm getting kind of worked up about it.
Please, go for it.
But there are times when I have said, I usually won't say it in a big group. I might say it personally to the director afterwards. I feel like I have to share this with you because, but it would have to be something really egregious that the performer did.
Didn't show up, late for rehearsals.
Yes.
Bad morale for the company, bringing the company down. And
then I look at things like sometimes, we learn after the fact that the person was late because of something going on in that person's life. And so, I wonder, like, should we have extended more grace for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
The show must go on, but like, what does that mean now?
One of the things that actors are advocating for now, and activists are advocating for now, is inclusion and diversity. One of the more controversial aspects is that trans roles must be played by trans actors. Gay roles must be played by gay actors. How does that complicate the casting process?
Of course, it's a challenge, but it's the right thing to do. And so it's only going to make the company you put together richer and more authentic and more and more relatable for the audience. So whatever the challenge is, that you have to meet that moment and do the job. So I'm kind of thrilled about it. I'm glad that all those hands were raised about all of those things and voices raised about those things.
Are directors and producers, writers, composers open to it as much as you are, as thrilled as you are about it? Does it take some adjustment on their parts to think, I love this actor, but the actor is straight, but I want him to play this gay role? Or, do we have to, go there? Do you hear that in the audition room from producers, directors, the creative team?
To an extent. I mean, I would say that for the most part, everyone knows that we've turned a page and we need to do the right thing. I'll just say it this way. It's going to be easier for some directors than others.
Well, I'm sure that a show like Hamilton, which opened the door to how roles can be played, must have had a huge impact on directors and creative teams as well. You know, if George Washington or, you know, our founding fathers can be African American or people of color, then that opens the door to all sorts of possibilities.
I mean, diversity on the stage is something that casting directors have been advocating, like my whole career. I remember the very first CSA meeting I went to, there was a big presentation about, you know, how we need to begin to think about all of this much more seriously to become advocates for diversity in the casting room. Obviously, over all these years, we didn't do a good enough job, right? We didn't do it well enough. So now we're really focused on it. But I think our focus has also turned to the behind the table and finding opportunities for people of color to come into casting, and you know, so that the space is not so white when performers walk in, when artists walk in.
And you're seeing more trans actors and obviously gay actors. There's never been a loss for gay actors in the theater.
Check on that one.
Check. One of the fascinating phrases or role descriptions that you have talked about before is the role that's described a young, beautiful woman. Yelena in Uncle Vanya, for example. Talk a little bit about the conversations that go in around that in the audition room.
I feel that everybody projects their thoughts about beauty, about innocence, about intelligence, about aging, about, you know, onto the actress who's going to play that part. And so, and when speaking of a lack of consensus, that oftentimes is one of the most difficult roles that we cast because of the expectations of what beauty is. People really don't share that, you know?
It's just a fascinating topic. What would you advise people that want to become a casting director? What would you advise them to do? How do you break into this business?
Well, the Casting Society of America has a training program that you could apply to, and that's all the information for that is on our website. We also have a mentorship program. So, you know, you could get matched up with a casting director who might work in the field that you're most excited about. Those would be the main things. And, you know, I would read a lot of plays. I'd you know, watch a lot of movies and television and see everything I possibly could afford to see. And like start now.
It's a very good advice. And start watching them from the point of view of casting, you know, that specific area. You know, watch them, but don't get carried away necessarily with the story. Look at the actors, see why they were cast or why they were not cast.
And start asking yourself questions about it. Like, would it have been better if X? Or did I love it because of X? Or what, you know?
We have to wrap up. In the 35 years, how has the business changed, in your opinion, for the better? And how has it changed for the been more difficult? Because
I work primarily casting for the theater, one difficulty is just so selfish, but it's that we compete now with so much film and television. So actors who, you know, 10, 20 years ago would go to Yale Rep for a 6 weeks or, you know, do a job at an ensemble in a Broadway show can now live at home, you know, and be with their loved ones and do lots of work in film and television. So that's been fabulous for the artistic community, but it's had a big impact on casting for the theater, I think.
And technology? Are you looking at many more videos of people that are submitted, and can you cast from a video?
We can do a lot of work from self-taped auditions, and over the past year and a half we have. And we just did a tour of Ain't Too Proud, which just went into rehearsal. And we did all the preliminary steps on Zoom and through self-tapes, and then we just did the final auditions in person. So yeah, it's possible. The great thing about self-taping is that it eliminates any kind of obstacles or borders. You can be in Winnipeg and send us a tape. You can be in a different time zone. You don't have to get a babysitter. You don't have to drive somewhere or fly somewhere. So I love that part of it. And I love that we're able to increase the amount of actors that we can see on any project. We just did a casting for Phantom of the Opera, and we saw 3,000 tapes.
Wow. That'll keep
And when
you
I say
busy.
we, I mean 2 people who work with me. So that part of it is really, really great. It's more work for us, but we're willing to do it because of all the benefits.
What's kept you unjaded and uncynical over 35 years?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think being able to work with such creative and imaginative and great people,
That'll do it.
And actors probably have kept, because you see what they go through and their courage.
That's a good note to last on. So for all you actors out there, I'm sure you're hoping that when you go to an audition, Tara Rubin Associates are going to be the ones conducting it.
Insist upon it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. We look forward to bringing you more fascinating conversations with artists and thought leaders as New York Theater, the fabulous invalid, regains its invaluable place in American culture. I'm Patrick Pacheco.